Here with this DBQ, and I want to talk you through that real quick. First off, gentlemen, take off your hats, and in the back of the room, take the earbuds out. Yes, you. Thank you. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to talk about how to approach this DBQ. If you had Mrs. G last year, and a lot of you did, DBQ is a document or data-based question. And all that really means is it's a research paper where I have done most of the research for you. And I've put the research together, and you will use that research in order to write your essay. First things first, one of the things we're going to talk about today is theme. And you'll notice in the back corner of my room, painted on the wall, it says Persia. It actually says Persia GT, but the GT is covered. Persia is an acronym for the major themes of history. And this sheet right here, and this is in your essay help student folder, this gives you what are the major themes. And Persia, you see the P stands for politics, E economics, R religion, S society, and there's Persia. The GT at the bottom is for geography and technology. And what you have beside it is what we mean by this. So for instance, when we say society or the social theme, what we're talking about are family order, whether a society is patriarchal, which is a fancy way of saying male-centered, dominated by the man, or matriarchal, female-centered. Gender relations, what is the role of women and children, what's the role of men? Are there major gender differences in terms of how the men and women behave in society? We say here about social class. Now class in this case refers in many cases to wealth, right? We talk about upper class, the lower class, being part of the middle class. If there's a great deal of difference in how these people are treated in a society, that's a social issue. Slavery would be a social issue, as well as immigration, how immigrants are treated in a country. That's a social, those are all social issues. If we scroll up, we see at the top, politics. Well, obviously politics has to do with government, has to do with laws. We would predict that. Leaders, presidents, kings, this is politics. But also war and popular participation, these are all part of politics. Okay, so why do we focus on this morning? Well, your DBQ is going to ask you to work on two themes, to focus on two themes, politics and society. And so we want to understand what these two things mean. If you are confused during the day about what would be politics, what would be a social theme, come back to this document. It's in your essay help folder. Now, this is your DBQ today. The first thing you want to do when you get an essay like this is, of course, read the prompt. What are we writing about? Which perspective on the society and politics of democracies do you see more of in modern America? Pericles or the old oligarchs? Now, what I point out to you is that what is it this question is really asking? What is this question really focused on? Well, first off, it's focused on society. That's the first theme, and I'm going to highlight that in a color. We'll call it this color. And politics, a second theme. And I'm going to highlight that really quickly, a different color, say green. So, society and politics are what I'm looking at today. And it's saying which perspective on the society and politics of democracies. Democracy is a major idea. I'm going to highlight that. Do you see more of in modern America? So, okay, what is this question really asking? It's saying, okay, Pericles and the old oligarch, these two texts we read, they had two different perspectives on how a democracy acts, and they said Pericles said democracy will make citizens better, stronger, make a society better and stronger. The old oligarch said exactly the opposite. He said democracy weakens. You want to have an aristocracy, right? You want to have rule of the best. And so he would say that your society and your politics will be weaker under a democracy. Well, America is a kind of democracy. We're a democratic republic. We vote. All the people get to vote. All the adults anyway. And that's coming up soon. And if we look down here, we say, okay, here's some excerpts from the Pericles text we read. And there are 7 of them. And juxtaposed right beside them are 7 excerpts from the Old Oligarch. And what you're going to do today is you're going to annotate. You've made a copy of this DBQ into your own Google Docs, and you're going to annotate these excerpts to look for social comments by Pericles in the Old Oligarch and political comments by Pericles in the Old Oligarch. And you want to highlight them. And what I would recommend to you, what I would assign to you, is that right up here, if you use blue for society here, when you read down here, anything you see that's talking about society, you highlight it in blue on both sides, whether it's the Old Oligarch or Pericles. And anything you see where they're talking about politics, you highlight it in green or the same color that you highlight this word up here in both sides. And the reason for that is what we want to create is a very quick visual so that when you look at this chart, you just look at it and you can say, okay, what is Pericles saying about politics? You're looking for one color. What is Old Oligarch saying about politics? You're looking for one color. And that's going to be a very quick reference, a very quick guide when you go to write your essay. Now again, this is like a research paper, and this is exactly what a historian would do. You go out, you get all this research, and then you do the serious thinking. What is your research saying? What is it saying about specific issues like politics and society? And then you annotate it. And that's going to help you then do your thinking about it and do your writing about it. So an example would be right here. Pericles says, our Constitution favors the many instead of the few. This is why it is called a democracy. If we look to the laws, they afford equal justice to all. Well, I think to myself, is this talking about society or politics? Well, when he says our Constitution, the Constitution has to do with government, has to do with the laws. So I'm going to call that politics. I'm going to call that green right here. And what is he saying about the Constitution? He says it favors the many instead of the few. Well, I'm going to color that green too. And now what I have, our Constitution favors the many instead of the few. That is his view on politics. And what does he mean by that? I have to do some thinking right now. What is that saying? Well, he's comparing that, right, to an aristocracy, that would a constitution that favors the few, the best. He's saying ours doesn't favor the few or the best, doesn't favor the richest. It favors the many, right, instead of the few. Now, we look down here, he says, if we look to the laws, they afford equal justice to all. And again, I'm going to take that. Laws have to do with politics. And I'm going to click on that and call that green too. And now I have 2 little excerpts. Now you notice I didn't take everything. This excerpt is already small, but I want to carve it up even smaller. One of the keys of annotating at this point is you want to do serious thinking about your research and carve out sections. Do the thinking now so that when you have to go do your writing, you've already thought the essay through. Now I'm going to come over here to the Old Oligarch, the Constitution of the Athenians. So I'm going to have the Constitution. The Constitution is about laws and government. That is politics. So I'm going to come over here, and I'm going to highlight that again in green. So I have one consistent color for politics. And the type and manner of constitution which they have chosen, I praise it not. And again, I'm going to cut out that second phrase. He's saying the Constitution of Athens, I praise it not. Fancy way of saying I do not like it. Now, he says, the Constitution, I do not like it. Why doesn't he like it? Well, insofar as the very choice involves the welfare of the baser folk as opposed to that of the better class. Well, the reason he doesn't like it is because it involves the welfare of the baser folk as opposed to the better class. And I'll highlight that as well. Now, that is a political, he's talking about the politics because he's talking about the Constitution. This last phrase is a little funny. It involves the welfare of the baser folk as opposed to the better class. So I'm going to highlight that last little bit. And now I want to make a comment. Basically, I want to write in the margins of my text because I'm going to spend the time right now thinking about what that actually says in human speak. So when I go to write my essay, I don't have to rethink it. I've done that work here. So I'm going to hold down, I'm on a Mac, as you are. I've highlighted that little bit of the text, and I'm going to hold down Option and Command right to the left of the space bar. Hold down those 2 buttons, and I'm going to press the letter M. And now I have a comment. I can write in the margin, and what I want to write is what that means. So he says involves the welfare of the baser folk. Now 2 vocab words in there from our last vocab quiz. It says involves the welfare of the baser folk. Baser folk, base, The base of something is low. So it says the low folk, the low people. This would be lower classes, right? And it says involves the welfare. Means we think welfare today, we think something very specific, government programs, that sort of thing. The word welfare just means it looks out for the good. It looks out for. So it involves looking out for or benefiting the baser folk as opposed to the better class. So I'm just going to write in a quick note. It says does not like democracy. And why is that? Because it benefits the low classes instead of the upper classes. And I'm going to hit that in. Now, what I've just done is I've fully annotated this first Pericles and Old Oligarch excerpts. I've annotated them. They are talking about politics, and where there was any kind of tricky wording, anything that I wouldn't immediately understand by going back and just looking at it when I go to write my essay, like this second phrase, I annotate with a comment over here because I want to think about it now. I want to think about which theme it's talking about now. I want to think about what these words are meaning now. I do that thinking now. This is pre-writing. I do that thinking now so that when I go to write my essay, I've already done the thinking, and I don't want to have to rethink it. I want to make my pre-writing effective, and I don't want to have to redo all that work. So take the time today, annotate the Pericles and Old Oligarch for these two themes, society and politics, and you'll see both of them represented. And anytime that there's wording that's very complicated, make a note to yourself over here in the margin. Okay? That is the work we're doing today. Next time when we pick up, we will look at, you have documents down below, and we'll look at these documents, and we'll actually compare them. We're going to look for the same themes in these documents, society and politics. If anyone gets done today with this chart up here, you should certainly move down and begin annotating these documents, looking for political and social themes in these documents using the same colors. When we have annotated all our research, we'll then be set up to organize it into an outline, and then we can start the writing. We'll be doing that the next couple of classes. Alright, enjoy class day, work hard, and I will see you when I get back next class. Thank you.